Since we've been talking a lot on the channel about inflation and the recession that we're in right now and just the overall state of the economy and where things are, I figured today would be a good time to look at another indicator that I believe points to the fact that not only are we in a recession, but people are starting to become desperate from it. Because there was a report from Target that shoplifting this year in 2022 is up 50% from last year. And that is huge, guys. And they're saying that by the end of 2022, Target is anticipating that they're going to lose $600 million from retail theft. And that's just this year, in 1 year alone, guys. But they're saying there's all kinds of things that contribute to theft. They have employee theft. There is obviously items that break, somebody drops something on the ground and it breaks, or even errors in the inventory system. But Target is blaming this on one big culprit, and they're saying that the majority of this theft is coming from organized crime. But in addition to the organized crime, another thing that's happening is people are going into stores like Target, for example, and they're stealing things that they normally would buy but can't afford to anymore. That's the other side of this story. And of course Target's not going to report that because that makes things look even worse, and it's just easier to blame things on organized crime. That at least makes things look a little better. In organized crime, what they'll do is they'll come in, steal things, a few different people will steal things, and then of course they turn around and sell the stuff online. Sites like eBay and Amazon, Facebook Marketplace, things like that, they'll turn around and sell these items that are stolen. And it's 100% profit, obviously. And of course, the retail giants have been lobbying in Congress for these guys to shut down these retailers from doing this. Like, you guys need to verify these sellers and make people prove who they are, especially whenever they're selling things in volume like that, because those are most likely the people who are committing these organized crimes. Well, I think we're gonna have to turn around, guys. We got something going on over here, and I don't feel like walking through that. All types of different retailers are having problems with theft right now, and it has been shooting through the roof. In fact, in 2021, last year, the entire retail industry on a whole saw about $100 billion worth in theft. That is unbelievably huge. And of course, retailers are doing what they can in order to try to prevent this. You have Home Depot rendering different tools completely useless if they don't actually pay for them at the register, and then you have other stores just locking things up until a legitimate purchase is made, which probably makes the most sense, but obviously makes shopping a lot more inconvenient, especially when you look at the customer service in the stores these days. There's never anyone around to help when you actually need help, and especially Home Depot, guys. These guys are horrible. I mean, you walk into a Home Depot around here and it's like pulling teeth to try to get somebody to help you. I think there's a camera back here, like a security camera back at this house, that's making this whistle noise when you walk by, trying to let people know that you're being watched. Now, Rite Aid, the pharmacy chain, they're also reporting their theft going up as well. And they're saying they've seen an additional $5 million in losses this year compared to last year, which obviously is not much compared to Target, but in certain areas of the country, it's much worse than others. And one place they're pointing to is New York City. And I'm surprised that they didn't mention San Francisco. And it's basically so bad there for these Rite Aid stores in New York City. People will just walk in and just calmly take stuff off the shelves and just walk out the store. That's pretty much what it's coming to. And I don't know why they're not stopping them. I don't know if they have the same laws in place that they have like in San Francisco, for example, where they're not prosecuting retail theft that's under $1,000, or what's going on. But it's just insane, guys. It's insane that people are getting away with this. There seems to be no end in sight. It's a problem that continues to compound year over year. And when we look at inflation and everything costing a fortune now just to buy anything in life, it's no wonder that this theft is going to cause even more issues with inflation, because these retailers are all publicly traded companies. And when publicly traded companies lose money, they're going to do a couple things. They're going to be looking at layoffs, like we've been talking about with other publicly traded companies that are all doing this. And they're going to be looking at raising prices to make up for that loss. So you get hit from both sides. If you work for one of these stores, you could lose your job. If you shop at one of these stores, expect to start paying more. I'm sure that these stores will absorb the losses up to some point, but after that, it's like, okay, we're losing too much money. We have to do something about it. And to me, this is just a sign of the times, because when you see things like this and you see that retail theft is going up 50% in just 1 year at one store, I mean, that's like the alarm bell ringing, guys. I mean, sure, they can blame it on organized crime, but obviously there's more to this story than meets the eye, because this is just a coincidence that it coincides with at a time when inflation is crushing everybody's wallet each month, and it comes at a time when there's layoffs left and right. I think it's pretty obvious that this is happening due to the state of the economy right now. And organized crime has been around forever, and it's not like all of a sudden this 50% jump is just all to blame on organized crime. I doubt it. Now, speaking of inflation, another problem right now that the Fed is going to be facing when it comes to dealing with this inflation that we have going on is something that a lot of people aren't paying attention to. And even I didn't know this until I read about this today. Now, according to the Fed, they're saying that the housing prices coming down is helping to ease inflation, okay? But what they're not telling you is that inflation in the service sectors is starting to go up. Service sectors meaning things like healthcare, car insurance, recreational services. Think of any type of service-based business. So you need the exterminator to come out, that's a service-based business. You have the pool cleaner, it needs to come out, that's a service-based business. Different things like this. And one factor that's putting a lot of pressure behind inflation in these type of businesses is wage growth, because they're saying that wages have risen on average about 5% this year, which obviously is well below inflation. So even though most people have gotten a raise and are making more money, essentially, like we talked about in the past, you're making less money because inflation is making life more expensive. And the rate of inflation is much higher than most people's raises. And so the idea here is, because we're just now starting to see people get raises, and especially in the service sector, that inflation is far from over, because more businesses in the service sector are going to be charging more for their services in the near future and well into 2023, making the Fed's goal of 2% inflation going to be much harder to reach. And even the Fed was warning people last week that, hey, we're still going to have to keep raising rates, guys. Everybody thinks that, these lower numbers is good news for everybody. Well, it's not, because it doesn't tell the full picture, and we still have more rate hikes to go due to these unforeseen challenges like wages going up and the service sectors that are going to make inflation worse. So everybody out there who keeps saying, oh, this is getting better, the inflation rate is going down, let's celebrate it. Yeah, go ahead, guys, celebrate it, and come back to me in December when they raise it again by another 75 basis points, because the inflation problem is actually far from over. They're saying that we are going to have problems with inflation at least until this time next year, if not maybe longer. So if that's the case, and the Fed continues to raise interest rates all throughout 2023, just think about where the markets are going to go, guys. What do you think that's going to do to the housing market and the stock market and people's jobs, and how many layoffs are coming? Like, just think about what's all this going to do. What are these high interest rates going to do? It's going to destroy everything. But it's all going to be good in the end, because even though people are going to suffer financially from this, it's going to essentially reset things. And that's what the Fed was talking about. They were saying, they're intentionally trying to reset the markets. And I think we're going to see that come true into 2023. as they continue with these rate hikes. And if it wasn't bad enough that we have this hidden sector of more inflation to come, the Treasury is going to be battling a new problem as well, and that is basically going to be a potential large-scale sell-off of treasuries because of liquidity concerns in the market. And basically, in case you don't know, liquidity just means the ease of which securities can be bought and sold, and the lack of it means that treasuries can't be transacted smoothly without significantly impacting the underlying prices on government debt. So these interest rate hikes that we're seeing this year by the Fed are causing a lot of investors to sell off their portfolio in the bond market, and a lot of people don't want to be buying these mortgage-backed securities anymore either, because none of this is a good investment anymore, essentially. And recently, the 10-year Treasury slipped to 3.7%, and it shrank the spread on the 2-year rate to a level further below zero. That implies that the bond market is deeply worried about the economic outlook. Look, guys, I'm not trying to be a downer. I'm not trying to scare anyone. All I'm trying to do is pay attention to all of these warning signs that we're seeing left and right and acknowledge them for what they are and try to get ready for what's coming. Because to me, I always feel like it's better to be ready for, things to get a lot worse, and then maybe it only gets half as bad as we thought it was going to be. And what's the worst case scenario? You have extra money, you're not in debt anymore, you paid off your credit cards. I mean, what bad could come from this, So to me, looking at any of this as bad news is all just perception. Because if you perceive it as bad news, then that probably means that you're not ready. But if you're hearing all these things and you realize, wait a minute, I have an emergency fund, I am debt-free, I have a plan or a plan B in case I do get laid off, etc. If this is you, then you're probably not too worried about this situation, and none of this is actually bad news, because when you sit there and look at it, it's like, wow, I'm actually doing pretty good compared to the average person who's not ready for this thing. Because you know who's really not ready for this thing? All of these tech workers in Silicon Valley. Because there was a report that came out talking about how a lot of people who live and work in Silicon Valley are basically starting to freak out now. Why? Because the glory days of Silicon Valley are basically over. Especially now that we have remote work, and companies now can look at relocating to less expensive areas and find good talent in other cities like Austin, Texas, or even here in Miami. Some tech companies are setting up shop in these places, and people in Silicon Valley are not as in demand or valuable as they used to be. Combine that with this recession and all the layoffs we're seeing in the tech field, people who work there and are in the tech field are completely freaking out right now. After the Meta layoffs have been announced, a psychologist in the area has reported that their firm is now seeing about 400 to 450 patients per week. And now that the Amazon layoffs have been announced, they're expecting that number to go up. So everybody there is seeking emotional help and support because of this issue that's going on with layoffs in Silicon Valley. And I'm not making fun of these people or trying to put them down in any way for seeking emotional help. But what I am doing is pointing out the fact that the glory days there seem to be over, guys. Why do these people need emotional help? Well, because they weren't ready. They weren't ready for these layoffs. When you move to an area that's supposed to be prosperous and you think nothing can touch the company that you're working for, and then along comes the pandemic, and then after that, all the money printing, and now fast forward to today, we're paying for this thing, we're paying for the repercussions of it. Well, now things aren't really turning out the way people thought they were going to over there. And when you live in such an expensive area like Silicon Valley and you get laid off from your six-figure job, how are you going to pay the rent? How are you going to pay the mortgage, guys? So it's reasonable for these people to be freaking out. But if they were ready and they had a plan and had money saved, then they probably wouldn't be so scared and needing to seek therapy on what to do. The psychologist has also seen a bunch of patients from Twitter because of the way that Elon Musk went in there and just basically fired everybody overnight, got rid of a ton of employees, with the stroke of a pen, essentially. So that's happening. They're seeing people from Twitter, they're seeing people from Meta, they're expecting to see people from Amazon very soon. Look at that. Christmas decorations. And who's coming in for therapy? Well, it turns out most people who are in the middle management positions or junior employees, because these people are the ones who are most likely to experience the most hardship from all of these layoffs. Because basically their thought process was, well, look, I live in Silicon Valley, I have this big tech job where I'm making all this money. If something happens, I'm not happy with the place, or I do get laid off, doesn't matter. There's a million tech companies in the area. I can easily just go get a job somewhere else. Well, that's not really the case anymore, guys, especially now that all these tech companies are doing layoffs all at once. And that's further contributing to the insecurities of people right now who are worried about these layoffs. People are worried about, if this happens to me, or if it already did happen to them, how long is it going to take me to go out and find another job? That's what people are worried about right now. And to me, that's a legitimate concern, because when you think you're all set and you don't have to worry about anything, and then all of a sudden you get laid off and it turns out there are thousands of other people hunting for that same job as you, that's not a good place to be in. And it doesn't even end there, because literally right before I decided to make this video, Twitter announced that they're going to be doing even more layoffs. I mean, the entire company is basically being gutted, guys. It's getting to the point where they have fired so many people now that there are multiple critical teams that are responsible for keeping the site up and running, and they've either resigned or have been laid off. And there's almost nobody left to keep the site up and running at this point, and there's a high chance of the platform breaking soon. That's how bad this is at Twitter. But Elon Musk can invent the Tesla and send rockets into space. I'm guessing he's probably going to figure out a way to fix the problem at Twitter, and I'm sure he'll be able to recruit the talent that he'll need real soon, given that there's going to be all these available employees pretty soon without work in the area. Now, guys, since we've been talking so much about the different layoffs that are going on, I want to share a quick story with you guys from one of my subscribers, Kathleen. I actually shared her story several weeks back about how she's been unemployed for a few weeks at that point, and she was looking for a job and wasn't having much luck. And she wrote me just a few days ago saying that it had been 7 weeks without a job, guys. So first of all, let's talk about that. 7 weeks, no job. That's basically 2 months. Ask yourself this question right now. Can you afford to live 2 months right now and pay all of your bills, your mortgage or your rent, your food, your energy bills, your gas, your car, everything that you do? Can you afford 2 months right now of no income? Okay? She just told me that last week she had 4 job interviews. She actually got a job offer last week, and the great thing for her is she's actually going to be making $10,000 more per year than she was at her previous job. So obviously being unemployed for 2 months is not a great feeling for anyone, but in the end it was probably a good thing for her, because now she's going to be making more money. So that's great. You know what she told me? She said that she's planning on using the extra money to pay off her debt. She made a list of all the credit card debt that she has right now, how much interest she's being charged, so she knows which cards to start paying down first with the extra money, because that's the easiest way to get out of debt. You just tackle the highest interest debt first and then move on from there. I wanted to share this story for 2 reasons. One, it just goes to show you that with a lot of perseverance, you can get another job even in this environment when there's layoffs left and right. But first of all, it took her almost 2 months, guys, so you need to remember that. And she said that her advice is to apply for jobs daily online for 10 hours a day. and use sites like LinkedIn and FlexJobs and apply directly on company websites and go to job fairs. It's a full-time job in itself to find a job. I want everybody to remember Kathleen's story in case you end up getting laid off, because obviously everyone could be at risk right now. And just remember, guys, you need to have 2 months of income. Remember that it took 10 hours a day, 7 weeks of applying for different jobs for her to finally get a job, because all this time in between we've been keeping in touch, and she was giving me updates saying, look, I've applied for this many jobs this week, nobody's hiring. She sent me all different types of stories about letters of rejections that she was getting from different companies, and it's demotivating, guys. It can really break your spirit when you need to find a new job and you keep getting turned down left and right. But through her perseverance, she found an even better job that pays even more money, but look at the grind that it took. So everyone needs to think about this story. If you're potentially looking at a layoff, or you've already been laid off, or you know someone who has been laid off, because this type of effort can make or break the difference of whether or not you actually get another job, or you're gonna be on unemployment, and who knows where after that. So remember this story. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you click the bell notification down below. And if you don't want to wait, check out my next video on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.